me, it's very happy to have Professor Mei Tai from University of Florida as our speaker. So Professor Mei Tai is a University of Florida Research Foundation professor, Associate Director of the UF Nelf Institute for the Connected World, and a Fellow of IEEE. So she's current research interests include trustworthy AI, blockchain, and optimization. So the results of her work have led to 7 books and over 300 publications in highly ranked international journals and conferences, including several best paper awards from IEEE, ACM, and AAAI. So the 2 latest ones are AAAI 2023 Distinguished Paper Award and 2023 Web Sense Trust Test of Time Award. So among many professional activities, she currently serves as the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Combinatorial Optimization, editor-in-chief of the IET Blockchain Journal, and book series editor of Springer Optimization and its applications. And so let's welcome our speaker.
Thank you, Amo, for your long, nice publication. With again 1 more 0 for it. And thank you for the invitation. Thank you, the department, for that. So I'm very happy to be here today. And actually, it's a nice canvas. I saw it that cherry blossom out there. Is that the tree, cherry tree?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful. What I'm going to talk today. Okay, so I talk about the foundation of machine learning, innovation, and trustworthiness. And it's not a foundation model. I just talk about the foundation of machine learning, the fundamental stuff that we need to understand in machine learning. I'm not talking about for the foundation model like ChatGPT that you got thinking about. Okay, so different word here. So just to let you know that over the past few decades, we see that machine learning have witnessed a remarkable exponential growth. So it's from very simple linear regression model, right? In the old time, when the Hollywood still making movie, imagine we will have robotics and do so on, right? Up until today, that reason can realize already, right? So it's go to very deep, complicated, and complex learning model due to like GPU, on-chip neural network, and new machine learning algorithm, and of course the cloud infrastructure, and we don't forget that the data that we are generated for this, right? So last night I can go to Google, I search for the picture to see that, can you show me the evolutionary tree of recent development of all the model out there for the last model? So it's not created by me. Actually, I go to GPT and I ask, can you give me the image of this? And here the image. I don't spend time to read all of them, but majority of all big companies, all big models out there is in this tree. So this, I'm not the author of this photo, okay? All right, so then you can see how, just get a feeling how things changes, right? When the GPT 2.5 come out, 3.5, and then 4 came out, and then vision, they first just cover natural language only, and then they cover the vision now, and now they just released that they can do the video, right? A couple minute video, and then just last week they said that just one command, they can mimic the voice as well. Everything you don't even need to know about machine learning. All you need to know is just writing a normal language, right? Just your English, and then they can return whatever you're looking for, or you can sit there, do a lot of prompt tuning, question to get that. So it's so convenient, right? It's so convenient to the point that it can apply every single domain, right? Games, healthcare, finance, supply chain, transportation. I know he had a big lab on autonomous vehicle and about law, and then we will now apply machine learning in green construction to make sure that they can try to minimize number of carbon emission out there. And we were talking about laws of nature as well to renovate the whole thing. So it's so convenient. So sometimes we forgot about one thing. When we develop and apply machine learning, without understanding the math, the stat, and CS foundation, it looked like back in the days when we tried to develop the biotech without understanding the biology, right? So now, because it's so convenient, a lot of I even go there for fun. I said that, can you generate me an image of a dog with the Picasso style? right? They give me the abstract picture of the Picasso. And I change to Impressionism style, like Van Gogh style. And they try to make the dog have a little star here, star there, and sunflower here, and sunflower there. So it's kind of fun, yeah, but that is just for fun. But if you want some innovative solution, you must understand, right? The same thing when you build the building, you have to have a good foundation, right? So then how you understand why your machine learning success or why it failed, right? And how you're able to prove it, that's the key point, right? To that. So why do you want to understand the AI foundation? There's several motivations of doing this. For example, conceptual clarity. Too many models out there. Which model should work well in your context? So if you really understand the AI foundation, you will know that, I should choose this tool rather than the other tool, right? Or the machine learning, if you understand it, then it's become more transparent to you. It's more interpretable, it's more explainable, right? You understand why it makes a decision and how it behaves. And then of course, adaptability. Here, if you want to build new technique on the existing principle, you need to understand the existing principle, right? So that is for the adaptability, of course, innovation. The more you understand, the better you come up with a new solution. That is obvious. And responsibility, actually, this is major issue for the ethical consideration when you develop machine learning. You can see like Biden tried to call for that, or recently in China, people also try to call for responsible AI, ethical AI, to make sure that the machine and safety AI, right? When it's no longer safe. And they even come up with a guideline when the red line that you don't let the machine learning step over. But if you don't really understand machine learning, how can you come up with that guideline, right? And so this is actually the major thing, because people even thinking that the machine learning can do the thing that you don't design for it to do. So like sub-alignment problem, right? Trustworthy, that is a very close problem to us, right? Trustworthy. When you build a machine learning, you make sure that it performs well, of course. Most of your experiments show that, my performance is about 90% prediction rate, right? But besides performance, you make sure that it's secure, so it's robust to the adversarial attack. It should protect the private data that you use to train, right? That's for data privacy, and of course, it's reliable. So that is trustworthy. That is most of people who do research in machine learning care about that, right? In addition to performance, you have to care about that. So today, I'm going to talk one part of this whole AI foundation here. You can see my, no. Oh, here. We don't have laser here, right? Okay, so I will use the computer. All right, so today I'm going to just to talk about the trustworthy part, right? So there are two things I'm talking about, the trustworthy AI. I talk about the explainable AI, so how to make the model, the behavior model become more transparent to user. And I talk about the exploit. So trustworthy AI, explain and exploit. That is two things that I'm going to talk about today, okay? So machine learning do all kinds, right? But when we said about, do we just care about performance, or we also care about the trust, the fairness, the legal, and all the aspects? So one tool we can do this is the explainable AI, right? So I bet you all know about explainable AI. So here is the definition of explainable AI. When I use a GPT, can you tell me what explainable AI? And that's what they said. Very decent. Well, I modified the language a little bit, but it's very decent, right? Process and method that allow user to understand why the machine learning model returns certain output, right? Okay. So that is the explainable AI. Why we care about explainable AI? Let me give you one example. This is several years back, a ChatNet model came out in the healthcare domain, right? So this is one of the model, the very first model that is very complicated, 121 layers CNN, right? And it's worked very well. What they do in that, the input is the chest X-ray image, and they can detect that you have pneumonia or not pneumonia. So that's the machine learning model at that time. I think it's come out 2017 or so. I mean 2017 or so. So the result is like the best published result on all 14 methodology, even exceed to the level of the radiologists. So people say, wow, and they report all this picture, and this paper published in Nature, all this. So people get so excited that it works so well, right? And it's so deep that no one understands how it works. And then they get this model to another hospital, it failed. Why it failed? Your first intuition, you're thinking that, our distribution, right? Most of you will think like that. Our distribution doesn't work because it's not generalized. It's not even our distribution because most of hospital in US is very similar to each other. So it's not like we use this model, go all the way to UK or somewhere else that have different. So it's not because our distribution, but it do something very funny. So I will show you later on when we use Explainable AI, we're able to figure out why the model works so well like this. Go to another hospital, it did not work. Okay, so when the machine learning get much deeper and deeper, right? Then the accuracy also go up, right? When you have more layer, it go up. But then at the same time, the interpretable of the machine, it go down. It becomes so hard to understand. And that is the area that Explainable AI can get the picture that we try to understand how the model works. So at that time, we may think that there is some shortcut learning was formed into the model. So you are student, you know that for them, you do multiple choice, right? And you notice that most of the time, the complicated, the more complex answer is end up the correct answer. So if that is correlation, eventually you will just go ahead select that answer, right? So when I was in the undergraduate student, I took a philosophy class and I noticed the pattern of that professor. I think he lazy to grading, I guess, I don't know. So 1 week he do quiz every week. 1 week he do the answer all A, 1 week be all B, 1 week all C or F or something like that. So answer is one column only. I think that easy for him to grade. That's what I think, right? But eventually student figured out, this he had a pattern. So as soon as you know one answer for sure, you know for sure that the correct answer, like probably that, then you know that D, then you know the rest of them should be D. That is a shortcut learning. Right? That is shortcut learning. Machine learning do the same thing because all they do, they optimize one function. So if they're able to find some correlation, some pattern that it work well, then they will automatically think that is the prediction. So a couple of years ago, Amazon get attacked due to that their machine learning model do the CV screening, and they said that they bias, right? They bias against the women applicant, right? So when they do the Explainable AI, they figured out that it's not that machine learning was built that bias, but because when they optimize the function in there, after they learn of the data, it creates a shortcut. Here the reason, all the data they train, the female applicant doesn't have a strong GPA, doesn't have a strong experience, working experience, right? So then after they train a bunch of that, and then eventually the machine will notice that, if the female reject, because they form the shortcut, it's much easier than read the whole thing and do all that correlation. So the shortcut learning is formed by itself. So that's what we were worried about when you build the machine learning. If you don't carefully understand how it works, it might do something else, much more dangerous. And especially when the machine learning becomes so intelligent, right? And then if you have ill intention and you're very smart, you're the most dangerous person out there in the world, right? So that's what they call safety AI. So a lot of things that in that deep model working that is hard to see, right? So I promise you that I will say why that one doesn't work. So this one is a very funny that they figured out that actually they don't read the image of the X-ray image. They end up read the token and the position of the token. So when they take the X-ray, the radiologist put some token in there. So eventually they figure out there's a position of token means something. Then they end up look at the token. So when you move to another hospital, they don't have such a thing. That's why it failed. So that correlation. On this one, the caption image, what you asked the DNA to label this image, the caption, it will say that. So they will describe the green hillside and the grazing sheep. Why? Because during training, the majority they see the sheep have the whole the green hillside in the background. So eventually they will learn, oh, they don't learn the shape, they don't look at the shape, they just look at the background. So that is a couple things that you can see for that shortcut learning, right? So why we need the explainable AI. All right, so what I'm trying to say here that we need to find a way to explain how the model works, right? For example, like if you apply credit card, they rejected you, and then they say that because of machine learning reject your application, you don't like it, you like the explanation. So now for them, I reject your credit card, I said that you have the bad history, credit history. Is that the true reason? The reason I tell you faithful or not, either the way to prove that is faithful or you just make up that explanation, right? Okay, so in the explanation, there's several things you need to look. So first, what to explain, right? How to explain, how to verify your explanation is faithful, and what if the explanation being exploited, right? And then they may do something else, right? So let's see. So I'm going to talk some part of that. So let's go back to talk about the explanation. So for example, you have the puppy, right? Image fit into the machine learning at the black box, right? You never open the machine learning to see how it works. At the black box is labeled puppy, right? So now the job of explainable AI here that you're explaining how that black box machine learning process that puppy in order to label the puppy, okay? So most approaching existing out there is that they're asking this model to process some of the input that we call perturbation, very similar input perturbation, to still classify puppy or misclassify to see which feature of that image is important to the decision. Then you say, aha, because of this region, because of this, it makes a decision. So most of our approaches out there do that, okay, do the perturbation. So basically, in the math notation, you're just collecting a set of input and output, right? So X is input, F of X is decision, and then you try to build the explanation G based on this pair of output and input, right? So that's the explanation G. So that exactly we need to find, right? So you do perturbation of the image, you get a bunch of X, then based on that, you get a bunch of FX, and based on this pair of input, if you can get the internal mechanism, it would be nice. Then you can see approaching to obtain your G function. So we have several results on this one, perturbation. What type of perturbation, right? Which perturbation of X give you the best explanation? So we theoretically prove that you have to perturb orthogonal to the manifold of the data set. That's the best perturbation out there. I'm not going to talk more in depth in that. I just want to tell you the few out there. And then we go on and we said that we can explain that explainable AI have some limit. In some instances, in some cases, it's not able to explain. So we analyze, we prove the limit of unexplainability. So it's not like everything you can explain, right? Not everything you can explain. So if you're able to build, if your shadow model can work well, why do you need to go to deep model? Because the shadow model by itself is interpretable, right? So don't think that you're able to explain every time you do perturbation. So if you cannot explain based on the perturbation, right? Then what else can you do? Then we can explain based on the white box model. So instead of explaining a black box, you can get insight. If someone asks you to explain the model, they may give you the model itself, right? So we do the deeper explainable. So the deeper here, we try to identify the mechanism inside behavior of the model, not just perturb the output and observe the input. So for example, this one is the fish. This one is school of fish, right? You fit into the inception, V3 is still classify goldfish. But you wonder yourself, inside will it work different or not? Do they have a different mechanism to do the same prediction? For example, when you look at the table, the wood table, maybe your brain think different way, but when you see the granite table, maybe your brain process different way, right? And you still say a table. So if like this, will the model work differently or not? So we want to look deeper inside to see what happened. So when you look deeper inside in each neutron, you also question that, what if you ask for any given arbitrary neutron, what the function that neutron handle? So for example, here, we look at neutron 40, neutron 40 of inception V3 model, and we see that all this image get activated, right? Then we say what so this neutron 40 get activated the most based on all this image. What the thing that this one do? So we have the paper automatically generate the function, and we see that because this one have the word city on it. So that maybe that neutron number 40, the job is to recognize the word city, right? For example, so then we not just explain on the important feature, we explain on mechanism, we go down, deep down to explain the function for each neutron. And then we further thinking, if I explain that much, do they use my explanation information to exploit and attack my model or not? If that's the case, how can I guarantee my explanation provides some level of security so that we can still explain, but we don't let them exploit us, right? So I will talk a little bit detail of a couple of papers here, but not all of them, okay? So I will highlight a little bit about unexplainability and maybe the neutron and explainable on the neutron and security a bit, if I have time. All right, so here the limit. So we theoretically show the limit of the permutation-based explainer. So the reason here, we go after a temporal graph neutral network. The paper published last year. So at that time, we do on this, but right now we work on the limit of the foundation model, right? So I'm not including the foundation model part in this paper, in the talk, because the work still ongoing. So the reason we want to do that, because if we're able to find the limit explanation, then we can prevent some fault reduction and provide evidence, right, of what the model can work and what the model cannot work, and what the model can be explained and what is cannot be explained. So there is many models explained on the GNN or temporal GNN for this. They perturb node or edge or both, or I mean both node and edges. So we say that in all cases, perturbation, some instances cannot be recognized and explained. So the key finding that we found here that first, we have to be a theoretical formulation. So that's why I mentioned about why we need to understand the foundation of the AI, right? You need to understand the math behind all the model to see how it works. So we build the theoretical formulation to show that if we do the node perturbation, okay? So in this one, I give you a simple example here for this node perturbation. So for them, we have the 3 input. It's just this graph, because this is a DGNN, right? So we have the graph as input. And then we observe, we try to find the max of all these 3 nodes, right? The max positive max value, and report it at the node up there, all right? So the relation we report at the first node. So when we see that the aggregation of 2, either this path or this path, they couldn't recognize the differences. All right. So what we try to show here that the theorem we prove that the node perturbation is not reliable for identify the path that carry out the prediction. It means that you cannot identify what message passing that is used in the model itself. Okay. And then for the edge perturbation, this is another example with the input 3 line, right? And you try to find the max between these 2. And you report on that node. So this is a kind of node aggregation, right? And then we say that the edge perturbation cannot reliably determine all the nodes contribute to the prediction. And here we have the max aggregation, right? And then we also prove that for the node and edge perturbation, for them all, it's the same thing here, but we have the time domain here, right? And we want to aggregate all this one to find the max value of all these 3 nodes, right? And report on that node. So if the path or the other path. So even we do both node and edge perturbation, it does not consistently have identified the graph component, right? Which responsible for temporal aggregation. So I just highlight some result here. Of course, all the key theorem, and Bruce, welcome to read my paper. But just to show you that the perturbation, if you perturb the image, not edge or the image doesn't have the graph structure, it's just a feature, and you explain at the black box, or we saw that explainer cannot faithfully explain all the behavior. Okay, so at some point the white box explanation is needed. That's what we try to say here. I think I have some slide on how to prove things, but let's just forget all this proof, unless somebody want to hear. Anyone want to hear? All right, I skip this, and I just have one slide on the idea, the concept only, and I move on. All right. So now I said that black box, we screw the limit already. In some cases, we cannot explain. We want white box. We want to look inside neutron, right? To see the behavior. It's not easy when the model is so complicated. We cannot just do the patching activation here and activation there just to see how it works. That becomes so complicated. And also patching activation is a so-called another type of perturbation, right? But it's instead of perturbation, the image you perturbate the neutron, right? Then also some behavior maybe you cannot. So we have the formulation to find this. So we call this one a new set. So for example, the DNA, right? It has the phase, it will go phase. We want to see inside how it works. So we have two. So we do some training sample, and then we look at the activation of neutron on training sample, and then we try to discover the critical neutron who do contribute the most to each activation layer, and at the end aggregate together to the last layer to the prediction. Which neutron we call that critical neutron. So after we identify critical neutron, and then we do some sample examine label, and then we examine the activation of critical neutron, and then we do the learning to see that if we have similar image, similar input, do we have similar neutron mechanism working inside? Okay, so this one have two steps. One is a new set discovery, and one is new set discovery, and one is new set learning. So the key point here that there are two ways that you can find the critical neutron. You can like mask it, like activate this neutron, mask this neutron, right? Patch in this neutron, that neutron, to see which one is more critical. Right? You can do that because when you change it, you see the output changing, then you know which is critical. We don't do that. Why? Because we're thinking that, again, I mentioned earlier, that is another type of perturbation. So we said that, why don't we have a mathematical formulation, like, because I used to be an optimization person, right? To optimize some function. So here is what we optimize. Oh, I have a little more here. After learning, then we're able to see that a goldfish alone have different kind of pattern of activation, but a bunch of fish have different kind of activation. I will show it a little bit later on. All right, so what we formulate that. So we look at, in this paper, we're looking for the machine learning model that it had the forward structure, right? So you have the input X, then you have 0, 0, 1, 0, all the way to L layer, right? Z here, the activation of that layer 0, 1, and 2, and so on. So there is a relation between all the activation layer. So then we can do the back propagation to find the objective function, right? So at each layer, we want to find a small set of informative neutron that impact the other set. So we formulate this one. So we want to optimize this one, maximize this, and this is a mutual information function between the two layers with the subset of that. So we back propagate to see. So if we're able to optimize in the paper, we prove that if we optimize this one, able to find the subset of neutron that it maximize this function, then it carry out the most important information at each layer. Okay, so that's why we do this one. And then one way to solve this one is we use the Markov blanket, right? Because Markov blanket is the one that in the PGM theory that is smallest set with the complete information. So in order to do that, we can show the Markov blanket in this layer like this. All right, and then of course this in the complexity theorem that Dr. Tong here may be interesting is a NP hard and computationally challenging. So we develop the knockup approximation algorithm with some theoretical guarantee on the objective functions. I'm not going to talk about this here, but you're welcome to read the paper. But what I want to say that after we solve this one, so we don't do perturbation anymore. We just do optimization style. Optimize this one, find what neutron, subset neutron can optimize this, and we're done with. All right. So, and then after we're done with discover a critical neutron, that's for explanation, then we're thinking now, what else can we do with that? And I mentioned earlier, we can look at the pattern of activation and of a critical neutron to see that is there anything different between a school of fish or a fish or something like that. So we look deeper into that. And then we can see that the activation is different. It can have two different clusters. And what neutron play an important role to differentiate the prediction between the goldfish and school of goldfish. So using nexus, actually we can debug the model further. So that's the kind of new kind of cool thing that I like. But clearly you can see the pattern between two, right? That one bee and a bunch of bees of flower. I think this one we started the bees, yeah, the class of bee, and then we can see different cluster. And then we go back to the image, and we notice that, you see, so we can differentiate between two clusters. So it's unreliable prediction. We can see that it look at outside, right? The red color is positive one, right? And it doesn't look at the image itself, right? So that's why you can see it false. So with the new set, the cool thing here that if you know some image, it's unreliable. So the rest of the image, it has exactly the same pattern of activation with the unreliable image, then you know for sure all those of them is unreliable right away, right? So that one we use. And actually, we even apply this concept. We collaborate with the College of Medicine on detecting the Alzheimer's disease, the AD Alzheimer's disease. So we build the whole model to look at the fundus image. So instead of CAT scan the head, they had the machine to look at the image of your eyes. So this is the eyes image, right? The called fundus image. And then we put in here, and then we identify the pattern. And then we're able to identify that the pattern activation based on the image is actually based on the critical neutron. Actually, it corresponds into from healthy all the way to severe AD. And mild, moderate, or mild work differently. So we're able to characterize this one. So this one just published recently in a scientific report. And then we go deeper with the clinical setting because you know the doctor always want the clinical setting, right? And they said that can you identify the important biomarker that make the person have the AD? Okay, so then we go on and then we look into it to see which one is important to them. You know, the red one is more important, right? That's the positive input. And how, but the one thing make those people excited that I said, oh, using nexus, you're able to identify 5 subclass of the AD. The severe one, the model activate different one. The mild one, the model activate different one. So then based on that, we can see that what level of those people have the disease. So that is the most important finding in this paper of this one. So apply nexus, when you understand deeply into the model, it's very important to see how its neutron work. It's very interesting to see. All right, and I also have, I want to talk a little bit of this before I move on to another topic. So for exploit, so when you explain, if I keep questioning you, you explain, I question you, explain, eventually I know something about you, right? The same thing here too. So now we know that a lot of crowdsourcing, they use the machine learning and the language. So they can come in, right? And they question you, why you make a decision. Most of the time, in your explanation, you return the top K important feature, right? And then I know what top K important feature is, then I can embed in the background text into that image, and I put in that crowdsourcing again. And because machine learning uses a language, they use crowdsourcing to train the data. I mean, to train the model. So then the attacker can, based on the explanation, they grab the background trigger via explanation and embed it here, and then eventually they get the embedded the backdoor attack into the picture. So now the question here is, how can I return the explanation so that this guy cannot do this, right? It means that I still return your faithful explanation, but they cannot get the top K feature that they want to take, right? So that's the key paper of the one that you mentioned. I have a distinguished paper award from Triple AI last year. And that is on this concept. So we developed a new explanation with LDP, local differential privacy, so that we add some noise into explanation, that we still keep the explanation faithful, but like it's hard for them to distinguish which one is important feature. So that is what that paper is about. So that is the goal that I just mentioned here, right? So we just simply add some noise. So it's a two-step, right? First, we randomly swap the top K feature, right, with some other feature under LDP. So we follow the LDP theory to how to swap the feature. And then after that, based on this, we build another optimization problem that we try to put the explanation with minimal explanation loss. Because the explanation is still faithful, you cannot cook up a new explanation. So that's the two. And then in the paper, we prove that how good the approach is. So we did some experiment on this one. I just want to show you quickly. So when the budget is epsilon, when epsilon small, this is the LDP theory. When epsilon small, it means that the smaller epsilon, the more noise you add, right? So you want to add in sufficient of noise in there. So when noise around this 10 to 1 here, that's a reasonable number. You see that attack success rate go very low. Okay, so that is one of exploit. But when I mentioned trustworthy AI, there's several different kind of exploit. Okay, so I give you one exploit that whoever do research in networking may be interesting. Is exploit the data privacy in the collaborative learning. All right. So what is collaborative learning we have out there? Federated learning, that's the one you know the most, right? So you train data locally, right? This is a concept introduced by Google, right? What they promise. You never share your data with the server, right? You train the data locally, and then you just update the gradient of your model, right? And then the average aggregator do different times, they send a new one down, and then this cycle continue until it converts to the one model. And Google promise that you never lose your information because you never share with me. All you share is just the gradient of your model, right? So if that promise is really true or not, okay? All right, so we showing that all this fancy stuff we can ignore, you know, it's being applied here, applied there, right? So motivation fed learning, NVIDIA also build the real model, collaborate AI for healthcare beyond. So for the healthcare, very dangerous because if you leak the data, information is you even violate HIPAA law, right? Okay. So let's look closer. If you really understand how things work, then you can question yourself. All right. There is attack vector, backdoor. If the user, because you have a bunch of user here, right? So if the user have the malicious user, it can do backdoor attack, poisoning attack. It can ruin your model. Of course, server can verify the model, all right? But I will talk about that later on how they modify the model. Another one, what if the server also malicious themselves that you cannot trust, or honest but curious, even they follow protocol, but they're curious to query your information. They can do, we prove that, theoretically we prove that they can do the membership inference attack. It means that they can look back into your private training data to see, furthermore, each user here the hospital, furthermore, hospital 1, hospital 2, hospital 3, training data to prediction cancer, furthermore. Now, if they can do inference attack to see Elon Musk in this data set or not, if he is, oh, it means he gets cancer, right? Right. So that is a membership inference attack. They also can do data reconstruction attack. It means they can try to reconstruct your data. So the promise of protect your data privacy is kind of big promise, right? Of course, we can do research for long year to guarantee that. But for now, with the current setting, federated learning does not guarantee to preserve your data privacy. That's what we want to say. Many attacking vector here. All right. So then we will go on. Oh, hey, what you talking out there? There's no protection. We should protect as well. How about we do local differential privacy? All your data before you train. You LDP your data first before you train. Or you can DP your gradient when you send up so that they cannot differentiate a gradient. Or you can do secure accuracy, right? So it means that the server cannot see individual gradient because you do skew aggregation and then you send to server don't know it. So all kind of layer, protection layer, we still can prove that you can still leak the data. And the leaking here is interesting here that I will show you later on that if you truly LDP is a theory by itself, right? So you cannot break the LDP theory, right? So for sure, they cannot differentiate data. That's true. We cannot break. However, you LDP so that the model you train here still have to perform well. The epsilon have to be big enough. If the epsilon way too small to add too many noise, the model itself don't work. The prediction is the accuracy level goes so low. So the epsilon have to be around 4 to 10. But when epsilon from 4 to 10, then we can attack. That's the problem. So we don't say we break the LDP theory because that's the theory proof already, right? They prove that you cannot differentiate between two data points, right? When epsilon is small enough, right? So when it's so small like 1, then of course you cannot break. But 1, the model doesn't work. For model work, epsilon has to be at least 4 and above. Majority go to all the way to 10. 10, we break it. So that what I want to make the message clear, okay? We don't break the LDP theory, okay? But the LDP applied to federated learning at this point, epsilon has to be big and we can break it. All right, so then we also have the theory on the data reconstruction attack. So the one I talked to you, just membership attack. And then we also recently, we said that, people talking about federated learning in large language model, right? So each people have foundation model, and then how you build on top. So we also provide a theory on this one. You still, even you use foundation model, you do tuning, you have one more layer of tuning. That's the attack vector right there. We still can break it and do the difference. I mean, cannot preserve the data privacy. So we have all this result here. Let's see what I have it to show you a bit. Not all of them. We have until 12:30, right? All right, so let me go a little bit. All right, so I like to talk about dishonest server. Because there are too many attacking vectors. If I talk all of this, it will be the whole seminar by itself. So I just choose one. Let's say the server is not honest, okay? And majority server out there collect your data, nothing for free. You use email for free. They collect your data, right? You go to Facebook, and they don't call Facebook anymore, they call Meta, right? You type all kind of things, they collect your data, but nothing for free. They even have profile to study your behavior, you know that, right? To approach you, right? And they even know, if you watch the movie, The Social Dilemma, right? The two-person breaker, right? They know it one, and they know how to approach the guy, right? Is that funny? You don't know they do that much, right? You use that for fun, right? Some people even check in. I have some friends, travel here, check in, travel there, check in. So they really know you're not at home, right? So nothing for free. So when you do this data aggregation, like Siri do the Apple do federated learning on your Siri, what they said that, I don't collect your data. I just train so that Siri can hear your accent better, but they do something else, right? You install many apps in your phone. You don't know what they're doing in it. Right? They can collect everything you want. So that's the reason why it's free, right? That's the business model. So that's why I'm interested to see what the server collect. Do they actually able to collect your information or not? All right, so one of attack I mentioned there are 2 attacks we have. It's a series of many paper here. One is a data reconstruction attack. I don't talk. So at the top one of this is the membership inference attack. What is membership inference attack? Let me know. Whether a given target sample T was part of the model training data. Okay, that's the membership. So in the burst of training data you never share, I want to question, is that person, XYZ person, a target T, okay, is in your model training or not, okay? So that is the membership inference attack. And we prove that the server actually can infer that. And so you leave it. All right, so here, because the model, the server itself is malicious, right? They can embed in anything in their model when they deploy the model for you to train. So we saw that they can just do 2 rounds. No, one round, just 1 round. Maliciously change the model a bit. They're able to do that, to do the inference, okay? So if you get seen successful rate 50%, right? Either in or not in, 50%, of course, for you to be successful, it should be at least 80, right? Because if 50 is not successful, it equals random guess. So we so if you really understand how machine learning, let's say I use the ReLU at the activation function, okay? If you really understand how machine learning works, you easily can fool, right? So you know that here the ReLU function, right? Here the so for any input data point, we have the value of WIF plus BI, the bias of that neutron I, and WI is the weight, right? The weight matrix. So the value is mapped of this, right? So if neutron I not activated by the data point F, then it had to be 0, right? There's a 0 gradient. If neutron I is activated by X, then it had to be non-zero gradient. So if you're able to figure out to train one neutron that is only get activated by T, right? Then when you get the gradient, it's not 0, then you know T is in there. So that's the whole point. That's the whole point. So if you really know how the training happened, then you can think of that idea easily. Now how to, so we go to the point, how to find that neutron I, right? So that's the whole thing. So if you have the neutron I activated by symbol T, so that's the function going, okay? However, this is a non-linearity problem, right? If you look at the first layer, so we look, and again, I have to emphasize, this is the first fully connected layer, okay? So to introduce the non-linearity, so instead we look at the second fully connected. So first 2 layers fully connected, the rest we don't care. And on the first 2 fully connected layer, then we look at one neutron and second layer, because combined with second layer with the first layer, we have this rarely function, right? Then this one you can train. So basically you try to train so that when that neutron saw that target, it will be activated. So what you train, okay? But training here, it makes things complicated because you have to train, right? And so we can come up with an easy way, right? So let's look at the result here. You can see that it's successful, it's 100% without LDP, okay? Here, this one, no protection, 100%. All right, so now when you do LDP, right? So local DP here, right? So that's the theory of LDP, right? Given 2 input X and X prime, and then probability that A of X, A is the algorithm, the DP mechanism, right? A of X equals 0, not 0, is the output O in the range of A. Then it have to be less than E to the epsilon that I mentioned earlier. So epsilon is the privacy budgets that some of you noted, so I know you know. So when epsilon is small, it means you add a lot of noise that I mentioned earlier, right? So strong privacy. And I mentioned earlier that the epsilon have to be in reasonable range. So if you apply the LDP, what happened? Can you still able to do that? So in this first paper, I want to mention here that we training to find that one neutron. Later on, we have a mathematical way to find that neutron. Okay, but for now, we training, we find that neutron. And if they apply, if the LDP apply for each of the clients, what we're going to do. So we say that as of now, for the fair learning to work, you cannot apply LDP mechanism 1, I apply LDP mechanism 2, it's not going to work. The model cannot converge well. So we have to use exactly what mechanism, the LDP mechanism, in order to make the server, the model work. So because you apply exactly one mechanism, then the server is the one who tells you what LDP mechanism you need to use. So then when we do training to identify that neutron, to activate that neutron, we also apply the same mechanism, right? The same LDP mechanism, then we still get it. All right. So that is the key point here. So we just change the function that I showed you earlier, right? We don't have the M here, the mechanism of LDP. Now we just train on top of this. So we still get the whole thing, okay? And we can train exactly the same way we trained before, but we LDP on top. So exactly now, when you try to identify that neutron are to be activated by the SMOT, it exactly find the the decision boundary that you can cut separate between the sample and non-sample, right? So we visualize here and say that, of course, when epsilon is much small enough, so when epsilon equal 10, you see it totally separate that you can find the boundary to cut, right? When epsilon equal 7, it's a little bit blended, but it's still separate, equal 5. You still see that there is the way that to try to separate. So that's what we saw. So here, see under the LDP, we run that for all the epsilon from 1 to 10, right? So you see that this line is for the model accurate, okay? So when epsilon equals 6, the model accurate is 70%, even less than 70%, right? Slightly less than 70%. You see, so in order for this to work, at least the epsilon have to be in this level, and then attack is separate all the way up there, right? So LDP. So again, I try to emphasize that we don't break the LDP theory. Just because the LDP, the epsilon have to be big enough. But here the local LDP, if you DP the gradient, it's even worse. So that the work showing that if you DP the gradient, instead of LDP, you DP the gradient, epsilon had to be 20 something. That's way too big, right? So even epsilon around this value, we already break it, all right? And then the attack is quite stealthy, right? Because we just modify one neutron, right? And then if we compare the distribution between the model weight and Melissa's weight, is very similar. So it's really hard to detect if the client is smart enough to detect. And then this year we just published another paper in AI Stat, and we said that can we provide a formal statement for the privacy leakage in federated learning? And because we just published recently, it's boring if we don't mention about large language model. So the paper is also on a large language model. So in the large language model federated learning, the client like freeze a lot of hyperparameter already because they use the foundation model. They only tune in some layer only on top, right? And majority of model freeze, and then they train it. So we have two kinds of tuning the trainable weight in serial or in parallel. And this will attacking surface that we can learn the attack. All right, and the attack will be very similar concept that I saw earlier. And majority of all the foundation model, the surface typically is the attention layer or the fully connected layer. Okay, so I showed you the fully connected layer before, right? But that one doesn't have formal guarantee. So we do have both on attention layer and on FC layer. Today I'm just going to continue the flow. I'm just talking about FC only. Okay, if you want to read the attention layer, you can read this paper. Now we just published. All right, so for the fully connected layer, so in order to provide the theorem, we have to have a way without training, because that one we have to train. So we're thinking that forget about that. You know exactly how the model trained. You just modify the wave function directly. So that is the wave function of the first, line 2 is the first layer, and line 4 is the second layer. Second layer, you target only one neutron. So that is, you just maliciously, because you're a server, right? Maliciously modify that wave function and you're done. And then and then everything we do the same thing. If greater than 0, then we return 1. It means that the target is in there. And then we're able to prove that the advantage of such attack is equal to 100% that you can learn the attack to infer. And with the same attack, we prove that if had the DP, what happened? The LDP, what happened? So here, of course, it cannot be 100%, that's for sure, right? Because when epsilon is so small, you cannot do that. So the advantage will be equal 1 minus n number of sample, and the size of the whole data set minus 1 over that number in PM epsilon. When PM epsilon is a little bit harder to bound here. So the PM epsilon is the property that the LDP mechanism make the protective version of data point be inside the neighborhood of another data point. We have a lot of math here to describe what I just said. So that is what we provide a formal statement to guarantee the attack successful rate in case of LDP. And we run some experiment. So the Nguyen et al. Is our paper that I showed you earlier, which is in the AI state the year before. Now I show you the 10 1 neutron, and our paper, FC, our paper here is the paper of this year about the formal guarantee. So you can see that. And here we simulate the theorem 3 bow to see what happened. So the bow a little bit loose at the beginning and then eventually it kick up, right? So this is the bow we have, because to bow the BME is a little bit hard to bow. So but just to let you know the attacking rate, and we go the echelon budget from 2 to 10, right? So you know that from 2 to 6 earlier, it's hard to break. And the break from 6 to 10, right? And then we can see that the attack is all the way go up and the bow get tighter. So when echelon big enough, it actually go to 1, right? Even with LDP. So that, and the same behavior in the image profits, image net data set, we have the same behavior. All right, so I talk all kind of the stuff. You see that we build a machine, learning algorithm we need is interpretable, and when it deep enough, it's not able to interpretable by itself. We build the explainer, and then we say, oh, there's a limit explanation, right? Actually, in the philosophy point of view, it's something need to explain. It's not good, right? Why do you need to explain? Right? There's no trust. So can we build something that it provides trust? Because 2 months ago, I go to the National Academy meeting, and then a bunch of doctors up there that really question this. Nowadays, people use machine learning to do diagnosis. Who is responsible? Because the doctor, they worry about that. They have all kind of instrument to protect them, right? If they misdiagnose. So now, if they use the machine learning and say that you have a disease XYZ, right? Because the machine learning predict like this, and the doctor is the one who tell you now if the machine learning did not do a good job. The guy who developed that machine learning will be responsible, or the doctor, the one who tell you you have that disease, misdiagnosed, is responsible. So it's in gray area right now. They don't know which one. So that's why they said they prefer to have the model that it can interpretable by itself. It can explain a little bit, faithfully explain. So at least they can use their own knowledge. So if you said this person have this disease because A, B, C, D reason, use their own knowledge because they're expert, right? Like if they agree with that, then they feel more confident to say, aha, I agree with this prediction, I tell you. But if you don't explain, don't say anything, and your model is hard to, because your model majority no theoretical guarantee of anything, majority machine learning out of that. I'm testing on this data set, I'm 80%, some paper even 99% accuracy, you saw, right? And but that is a data set you could, it's hard to say, right? So some formal guarantee is help, or some truthful interpretability will be have, some faithful interpretability will be have. So that, but it's not easy to go to that day, right? But it's not easy because the majority of theoretical paper out there who can bound some decision guarantee have only 2 or 3 layers, right? More than that, it's hard because it's hard to generalize that theory. So, and also many things is really connect together. So you worry about security, privacy, especially healthcare domain, and you want a model transparent at some degree, and you want fairness, which I left out today. I don't talk about fairness, right? So if you want all this, even security, privacy is already hard because there are too many attacks out there, right? You have to take care of adversarial learning. You have to take care of backdoor attack. You make sure your is provable robustness, and you guarantee the privacy. It means you have to have DP. And out of that, you have to have the high utility. Even only one model is already hard. Now, I mentioned to you about explaining AI, it's correlation. You explain, you may hit the, you may break the S&P, right? And S&P and fairness, it also have problem because when you provide the S&P, provide guarantee for security, you may break the fairness as well. Because you have to take care of DP, you have to take care of robustness, certified robustness, privacy training, utility, right? And some paper out there also mentioned that you protect this, you lose this, you protect this, you lose that. And then, so even only one little circle is only hard to achieve, let alone, remember earlier I showed you the foundation AI with many different things. It's not easy at all, right? But the good news is, more thing for you to work, right? Right? The harder, the more challenge, the more interesting it is, right? Or else life is boring. And that's all for my talk today. Thank you. I think no question. It's at 12:30, right?
Do you have any questions?
I perfectly do it.
I want to know, because many of students in here, we are seeing computer science students since we were undergraduate. So we learned some basic maths, for example, like linear algebra, statistics. So what's your advice for us to develop, for example, theoretical sound paper? Because I saw one of your research topic is optimization, and also I quickly go through your sound papers. It's very the theoretic, they have theoretical Pullman or something.
Yeah. So most of my paper have a bunch of theorem in the appendix, because I used to be, as you said, I used to be the combinatorial optimization, approximation algorithm I mentioned to you this morning. We used to develop solution with some guarantee. If we saw paper out there, use method heuristic, and we say, that kind of feeling. So now the machine learning is also another so-called heuristics out there, right? No guarantee, no theoretical guarantee. And the few noticed that. So before, paper with no theoretical analysis, with no theorem, majority get published, but now get harder. Only the no theorem, but from Google research, because they have some very huge machine, they discover something new. They have their own novelty, okay? They don't need theorem novelty. They don't need that math novelty. They discover something new, or they build an entire new architecture, right? So that different story. Right? But for us, we don't build entire new architecture. We modify something, we understand something. We need to, and because we researcher, it's not a company to develop the model itself, right? So we need to have a fundamental contribution, the novelty. So that's why I like math, and I think he also like math, and he also like math. Yeah. So it's fun, and but now back to your question, what kind of math, right? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, for me, I know how to formulate the problem for the AI problem as a math questions, but sometimes I don't know how to solve it because I'm not familiar with some mathematical tools. So where can we start? At least I need to have a directions where I can start, so I can know what kind of math I need to learn.
What kind of math? It's hard to answer.
Okay, I think his question is what kind of math course?
Oh, what kind of math courses?
Yeah.
I think very basic math, like I would say, I get my degree in math as well before I do my PhD. So I think all that basic math, that I took them all, like you mentioned about algebra, abstract algebra, matrices, graph theory and all that stuff. So you have foundation, right? And then now when you do research, for example, when I used to be not machine learning, right? I'm optimization person. When I jumped to machine learning, and my first grade on Explainable AI, which I'm still working on it, but different version of that. Because the reason I said that, the model is so deep. Somebody will need explanation, and exactly true. When we jump into it, then suddenly DARPA call for Explainable AI, and NSF call for Explainable AI. So when I jump into it, I work on GNN right away because I said that GNN is so new, and what GNN is graph, right? And I'm the graph theory person when I do optimization. And then I know that I need to know PGN. So probabilistic graph modeling theory. Then I just get the book and read myself. But why am I able to do it? Because I also get degree in math before. So maybe that's how it works. It's hard to say what math, but when you get one foundation and when you work on different fields, you need some type of math, you're able to grasp it. Furthermore, I have one paper on topology machine learning that I mentioned, the EMAP one, the multiplication orthogonal to manifold. So when you hear the word manifold, you know topology. So that method topology is tough. So, but if you like it, then that you have to read and learn that before you can do this. Yeah.
I can give you a tip.
Okay.
Just now when Professor Tong introduced Professor Tang, he didn't mention they have the same advisor,
Yep.
PhD advisor. So their PhD advisor is one of the famous in the United States in that
Math. Optimization.
Yeah, Professor Tu. So one way to solve this is taking Professor Tong's class. Yeah, that's one of the shortcuts to getting there. Okay.
Yeah, I was heard like Dr. Tong's class is very hard for.
It's very hard.
Yeah. I heard your student, your TA student.
Okay, that's a separate story. Don't feel that way.
Very hard for someone. It's very hard for someone.
Yeah, you have to love. And you all don't need to do math. Right? I just talk about this because this, but when I go to different conference, I don't even talk anything have a formula at all. So it depends on your liking as well. You don't need to do math because there's different kind of foundation, fundamental stuff, right? Yeah, so if you don't like, you don't like. Right?
Okay, so any other questions?
Yeah, I have questions about the membership inference attacks because I'm also working on this area. And one of the contribution of this attack is that such kind of attack can enable the user to examine whether his private data have been trained by some models, right? But I have a long-lasting questions about that. In some critical scenarios, the users may even know what kind of information have been trained by the machine learning model. It's just like, for example, we all know that our mobile applications may collect extensive our privacy, but we even don't know that how do we organize our sensitive data? How does this data have been used by the recommendation systems? So maybe sometimes I think that currently the membership inference attack are not enough for the user to examine whether the sensitive data have actually been used by some recommendation systems, right? Maybe we need some more stronger inferences so that the user can know whether my specific knowledge or specific behavior have been trained or by some models like the recommendation system.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, so that's a good question. There are two different things here. So when we mention about membership inference attack or the data reconstruction attack, if from a server point of view, they do that in order to get your privacy. It's not for user to understand anything, right? So the key point of this talk is to say that don't think federated learning protect your data, even though you don't share your data, right? So I choose to talk about membership attack, but also there another attack, data reconstruction attack. They still can reconstruct your data. And this message is very important because like from the banking, right now they do between banking, they said they try to detect the fraud detection, anomaly detection, and then different bank take different kind of algorithm. They said they really want to share between bank, train together to see that how to detect have a better model. But because of this, they're scared because they can leak the business model. With the user here, not you or me, user here, the bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, bank, whatever name bank, right? So that's the whole bank. So they train at this level and they use all their user, it means you, guys, me, down here to train, right? Right? So if, and the one I show you here is the horizontal fed learning, not the vertical fed learning, right? Horizontal has a server, vertical doesn't have a server, but has an active member and active user and passive user, right? So if the active user can infer that this, I can figure out I can reconstruct some of your data, I can figure out your business model. So that is a different point of view. Okay, so from a user, so from user point of view, furthermore, you want to see the data recommendation how it works, right? It's not about the privacy issue, it's about how they collect your data and how they use your data.
Yeah, because the user may think that we don't want all our private information have been used for some machine learning training, right? So in this scenario, the membership inference can somehow enable the user to know that whether his private data is in the training set of a specific model, right? So it can be another adoption of
I see that. So if you can attack this way and you say, I know that you use my data, yes, and then people only know that one. You see many lawsuits happen right now for the machine learning foundation model get lawsuit because they use the painting. And the painting is copyright from what I painted. I don't make for you to use, and they use it to train. So there is one field out there which I don't touch on it, unlearning. Right, unlearning. So the choice is that now if I sue you, right, you use my data, you need to delete my data from your training. You don't want to train from the scratch, delete my data and then train the whole thing. So unlearning, they will unlearning is that whatever is associated with your data when your painting, for example, when are you training, I will unlearn all that.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah.
One thing is that if I deny that I use your paint, how can you assert that I'm actually using your paint? Yeah, maybe in this time the membership inference can be used.
Okay, I see. You see the application of it. Yeah. Okay, that's really good. Yep, you see application of that. You have to identify what we use, right? Yeah, the same thing for data reconstruction as well, right? After you get the model, and then you do that. So people, but out there people also have that, right? The reverse engineering, right? Attack the model to infer this already. Which are the fair learning setting? They just said that if you deploy the model, they can attack the model. That field is very many years ago. They can attack the model itself to infer the data you use. No need for learning. Yeah.
Okay, good. With that would be all for today. So thank you for coming and thank our speakers.